Hi, I'm Emily Casto, and this is my final video going over my art portfolio for Art Education 3309. We had 7 projects this semester, and we had to put them all in this beautiful binder with the worksheet and then the project on the other side. So the first art project was about designing. We had to only use certain kinds of lines and shading to create an image of a bug. I chose a butterfly because they're my favorite bug. I chose the 5th grade science standard about talking about how to group organisms using scientific classification procedures, and I used Objective A, which was to develop a model that illustrates how animals are sorted into groups vertebrate and vertebrate, and how vertebrates are sorted into groups fish, amphibian, reptile, bird, and mammal. This was the closest standard I could find for my grade level for bug. So obviously it's not a mammal or a bird or a reptile or a fish or an amphibian, but it could be extended to how do we classify insects. Again, maybe a review for 5th grade. I'm student teaching in 5th grade, and at the time I really wanted to do 5th grade, so I made it work. So you could classify them as an insect or any other kind of bug, because I think it's just insects and non-insects. It's been a while. Butterfly, insect. So then we had Art Project 2, which was for watercoloring. We were not allowed to use colors you would find in nature. We had to abstractify the whole image. So here we have, a landscape, but it looks more blue and green than, grass green, and then the sky is purple instead of blue. The standard I chose was a social studies standard for 5th grade, which was to locate important places in the United States, one of them being Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. So, since we studied that this year in 5th grade. So I made Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. I drew the first airplane that they flew in Kitty Hawk, and it's just supposed to represent Kitty Hawk. I guess you could implement this into any geographical standard lesson of them making a landscape of that particular region. Let's see, the next art project was on oil pastels, and we had to make our own animal using these oil pastel crayons. Pandas are my favorite animal. So I wanted to stick to pandas, but I had to incorporate some other animal into it. So I decided to make it, I think I called it a tiger, where I mixed the shape of a panda bear with a tiger. So I gave him maybe like a Bengal tiger with black and white stripes, and then I gave him a tiger's tail. The standard I used was the 5th grade writing standard to write narratives to develop real or imagined experiences or events using effective technique, descriptive details, and clear event sequences. So I figured this would be a good way to motivate students to fulfill the standard to write a narrative if they got to create their own animal and then write a story about it like we did in this class. The next art project was on printing. Right, so we had to take this styrofoam paper plate, color on it a pattern. Oh no, first we had to create the design with a toothpick or a pencil, and then you had to fill in with different colors and then print it onto a piece of paper to make this print. So this was my print. It was pretty small. I only had a small paper plate and I didn't want to buy big ones, so mine's a little small, but it looks pretty good. It came out well. To make a pattern, I used a kindergarten math standard since we don't have one of these for 5th grade, which was correctly name shapes regardless of their orientations or overall size. I didn't really have much of that in my picture, but if you were to use this in a kindergarten class, then you could have them make different shapes the way that they think they should be drawn on the paper plate, and then after they had made the print, gone through the whole process, made the print, and were showing it, you could rotate the print and see if they could still identify that shape. And that's when they would realize, that's when they would get that awareness that shapes don't always have to be up and down. Like a triangle doesn't always have to have the point on the top. The point could be to the side and still have 3 sides and still be a triangle. So I thought that's why I used that standard for this one. The next one I really enjoyed. It was on mixed media, and we had to select a famous person to create out of a paper bag. I chose Dr. Martin Luther King, so I gave him his mustache, and I gave him his I Have a Dream speech. Might be hard to see. I had to fold up his little arm so he could fit in my page protector, but his arm's supposed to be coming out here like he was giving his March on Washington speech where his arm was extended all the way out, but I had to fold it so he could fit. So my standard was, of course, the 5th grade social studies standard. We were learning about him. That's why I chose him at the time. To describe the importance of key people, events, and developments between 1950 and 1975. This project would just be great for any grade, any standard that involves key people in that time, because that way not everyone in the class is making Martin Luther King, you know? I mean, you could if you really wanted to, but for any standard, there's usually multiple people within that standard, so this would be a great mini project to have kids do just so that they remember and maybe make them include something that distinguishes them, not just their face, but something that makes the teacher know, okay, this person knows why this key person in history was important. That's why I included his I Have a Dream speech in there. I didn't have to. You could have known just from the mustache, right? All right. The next one was on shading. So I drew a candle because we were supposed to pick an object in our house. I have lots of candles, and candle seemed the easiest and the best way to do a shading. So there's my candle. Came out really well. I'm pretty proud of it. The only standard that I could find was the skills standard of use appropriate tools strategically, which technically works because I had to hold the pencil like 3 different ways in order to get one picture. You know, you have to hold it almost vertically to draw your original shape, and then you have to hold it either, you have to hold it there are 2 different ways you can hold the pencil to where you get different kinds of shading. Like here I got a sharper shading, so the lines are closer together, and they're more lines than strokes. But then as I came out, I had to hold the pencil a different way to make the more general, larger strokes to make the shading. So if you wanted to extend how to use certain tools with mathematics manipulatives, with science tools, if you want practice to see that your kids are ready to use tools different ways and in certain ways, then this might be a good preparation activity. The last art project we did was in 3D. Obviously, I couldn't put my little bird here into my binder, so I just printed out a picture of him. He's pretty cute. I really enjoyed making him, though. I love blue jays and birds, so I decided to make him. Let's see. The standard I used, I used the kindergarten standard, since it was an animal. We don't really have that in 5th grade, so I used kindergarten, it was the same one as the first project. Hey! Just now realizing that, was to obtain, evaluate, and communicate information about how organisms, alive and not alive, and non-living organisms or objects are grouped. So I guess in a kindergarten classroom, if you were using it, you could have your kids make their favorite animal or their favorite plant, or maybe you'd have to, since everybody would probably want to make an animal and not a plant, you'd have to split the class in half, or maybe have them make one of each, their favorite animal and their favorite plant, and then classify them as living, non-living organisms, alive, not alive. Or yeah, maybe that could be 2 different lessons if you had animals and plants, and then maybe any living thing and any non-living thing. Maybe their favorite object, animal, you can make it very general, and then have them classify as alive and not alive. That way you could really see if they knew what they were learning, if they had retained that information. A picture of my blue jay. Pretty great. So that is my art portfolio in my 3-ring binder. I really like this class. My favorite project to make would probably have to be the butterfly, the shading butterfly. I had the most fun making it. It took me a long time. It might have taken me the longest time to make this art project, but I really like the finished product. It probably wouldn't be my favorite or my first to implement in my lessons when I become a teacher, but I know I had the most fun making it, and it's probably the one that I'm most proud of, if not my multimedia Martin Luther King hand puppet. That would be the one I probably use the most in my future lessons. I really enjoyed the course. I learned a lot from it. I did not know how to wrap a text as tight so that I could put it anywhere in a paper that I wanted, so that was something really cool to learn, because I really needed to know that. And I just had a really fun time making all these art projects. Thank you for a wonderful semester.